Imagine you're standing in a checkout aisle at a retail store.
Oh,
Okay?
okay.
Yeah. And you glance at a digital display near the register for like a split second.
Just a quick look.
Exactly. And before you've even blinked, the advertisement and the pricing on it adjust specifically to your micro expression and where your eyes just darted.
Wow. Natively.
Completely natively.
Yeah.
It didn't pause to ask, a massive cloud server in California for permission. It made that complex, highly analytical decision right there
Yeah.
in the literal milliseconds it took you to breathe.
That is intensely fast.
It is. And welcome to today's deep dive. We are really thrilled to have you with us as we unpack a fresh, incredibly detailed review from Gative AI.
Yeah. Published just recently on April 11th, 2026.
Right. And today, we are focusing on their breakdown of a piece of software called Google AI Edge Eloquent.
Quite the name.
Oh, yeah. Our mission for this deep dive is to decode, well, exactly what this tool is actually doing under the hood.
And why shifting AI compute power away from centralized clouds and directly onto local hardware really changes the infrastructure of your daily life.
Exactly. We want to figure out whether this represents the undeniable future of computing or, just a highly complex, expensive headache for enterprise tech teams.
Because it could easily be both.
So true. Okay, let's unpack this. We are used to treating AI like a genius consultant.
Right, yeah. Like an external expert.
Yeah. When you have a complex problem, you gather your data, you effectively pick up the phone, and you ping the cloud.
You make the call.
You make the call, you wait for the connection, you wait for the server farm to process the query, and you wait for the answer to come back down the pipeline.
Which is an architecture that works beautifully when you're sitting at a desk.
With good Wi-Fi.
Right, with a stable gigabit connection and time to spare. But the core engineering hurdle Google is attempting to vault over with Edge, Eloquent isn't really about making an AI smarter.
Wait, really? Because I feel like
Yep.
every update is just about, cramming in more parameters to make it smarter.
Normally, yes. In the traditional sense of parameter count, sure. But here, they are tackling the immutable laws of physics.
Physics.
Specifically, the speed of light and network latency. There is a hard physical limit to how fast data can travel.
Oh, like through fiber optic cable?
Exactly. From a local device, through multiple network hops, up to a centralized server to process the data and then return a command.
Ah, I see.
When an autonomous system, or say a critical sensor, needs to make a decision in 5 milliseconds, the cloud is physically just too far away.
And that introduces the core concept of this Gative AI review.
Yeah.
Which is Edge AI.
Yeah, the edge of the network.
Right. We are talking about pushing the intelligence to the absolute perimeter of the network.
Right.
Right, where the data is actually being generated in the real world.
So sensors, remote monitors, factory equipment.
Yeah, small Internet of Things devices.
Yeah.
But I'm struggling with the overarching logic here a bit.
That's
Well, if the cloud gives us access to virtually infinite computing power, aren't we taking a massive step backward?
by moving away from it.
Yeah, by trying to cram incredibly complex neural networks into tiny, underpowered, resource-constrained hardware. I mean, why are we shrinking the brain instead of just, building out a faster 6G network to eliminate the latency?
What's fascinating here is that even with theoretical zero latency networks, bandwidth is never infinite,
Okay.
and
Right.
connection stability is never absolute. If you are operating, say, an autonomous drilling rig in the North Sea,
Right, middle of nowhere.
or a pacemaker connected to a hospital network, you cannot tolerate a dropped packet, even for a millisecond.
Wow, yeah, dropped packet on a pacemaker is a terrifying thought.
Exactly. So rather than relying on the pipe, Google went to work on the payload.
Okay, so how did they do that?
To make Edge Eloquent function on low-power devices, they rely heavily on a mechanism called model quantization.
Model quantization, basically breaking the model down so it fits in a smaller box.
Pretty much. Stripping away the computational fat entirely, a massive cloud model uses extremely high-precision floating point numbers for its calculations.
Which I assume requires a ton of massive memory and power.
A massive amount. But Edge Eloquent utilizes algorithms that compress those parameters into much lower precision formats.
Wait, doesn't that make the AI less accurate?
It effectively trades a microscopic, often imperceptible drop in absolute mathematical accuracy for a monumental reduction in the power and memory required to run the inference.
That makes sense.
And then they map these hyper-efficient models directly onto specialized low-power silicon, like edge tensor processing units.
So by distilling the neural network down to its most efficient form, you sever the umbilical cord to the cloud.
Precisely.
When a machine needs to make a decision, It doesn't query a server and wait in a queue. It crunches the data on its own local chip and just acts.
Instantaneously.
That absolutely solves the latency issue. But that immediately raises a massive secondary question for me.
What's that?
The defining feature of artificial intelligence right now is that it learns from vast, ever-updating pools of global data.
Right, the collective knowledge.
Exactly. So if this tool is completely disconnected from Google's massive central servers, how does it stay sharp?
That is the big question.
Right. Like if it's isolated on a tiny device in a factory, doesn't it just stagnate from day one and stops learning?
Well, that isolation problem has actually been the Achilles heel of edge computing for years.
I would imagine so.
And it brings us to the first of two major standout features, the gate of AI review highlights, which is adaptive learning.
Adaptive learning. Okay.
Edge Eloquent is engineered to continuously update its localized models based strictly on the new data inputs it observes.
In its immediate environment.
Yes, without needing to execute a complete computationally crushing retraining cycle.
So what does this all mean in practice? It's kind of like, it's like a chef, right?
A chef.
Yeah, it's like a chef who learns to tweak a recipe on the fly while they're cooking, rather than having to go all the way back to culinary school every time a new ingredient shows up.
That is a great way to visualize the mechanics, actually.
The device isn't rebuilding its entire foundational worldview from scratch every time something changes.
No, not at all.
It's just updating the top layer of its decision tree based on the immediate localized anomalies it is seeing in the room right then and there.
Exactly. Because in a traditional architecture, if an environment changes, you have to collect all that new edge data, transmit it back to the central server,
Which takes a lot of bandwidth.
and then retrain the entire massive model, and then push that updated software back down to the edge device.
That sounds like it takes a long time.
That takes hours, days, or even weeks. Edge Eloquent bypasses that loop entirely. It uses a form of localized transfer learning.
Localized transfer learning.
Yeah. The foundational layers of the neural network, the parts that understand basic patterns and logic, they remain static. But the final few layers of the model, the parts responsible for the actual specific outputs, actively adjust their mathematical weights based on the real-time data streaming through the sensor.
So the intelligence remains perfectly calibrated to its specific evolving environment.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so we have a fast, zero-latency system that actively adapts to its surroundings without calling home.
Which is huge.
It is. And that brings us to the second standout feature the review emphasized,
Yeah.
which is high-level security and privacy.
Ah, yes.
And frankly, this is where my skepticism kicks into overdrive.
Really? How come?
Well, Google's cloud fortresses are massive billion-dollar infrastructures. They're guarded by some of the best cybersecurity teams on the planet.
True.
Are we really supposed to believe that keeping sensitive data localized on a small, physically accessible edge device like sitting in a hospital hallway is somehow more secure than locking it inside that massive cloud vault?
If we connect this to the broader landscape of cybersecurity, the architecture actually makes perfect sense.
Walk me through it.
The absolute most vulnerable moment for any piece of sensitive data isn't when it's at rest in a vault. It is when it is in transit.
Oh, right, moving data.
Exactly. The moment data leaves a local device and travels across a Wi-Fi network, through an ISP, across routing nodes, and into a public cloud.
The attack surface just expands.
It expands exponentially. It can be intercepted, spoofed, or subject to a man-in-the-middle attack.
So the philosophy here is, if the data never travels, it can never be intercepted in transit.
Exactly.
The attack surface shrinks to just the physical device itself.
Precisely reducing the vectors of attack.
Yes.
And to secure that physical device, Edge Eloquent doesn't just rely on, basic passwords.
I would hope not.
The Gate of AI review details how the software integrates tightly with hardware-level security.
What does that mean for the hardware?
We are talking about secure enclaves and trusted execution environments built directly into the edge chips.
Oh, wow. So baked right into the silicon.
Baked right in. Even if a bad actor physically steals the sensor or the camera, the data and the AI model itself are heavily encrypted at the silicon level.
Okay, that changes things.
And for highly regulated sectors handling sensitive medical or financial data, keeping that data completely localized and processed on device is rapidly becoming a non-negotiable compliance standard.
Okay, so the theoretical framework here is incredibly robust. We are looking at a system engineered for zero latency execution, localized continuous learning, and ironclad silicon-level security.
It's a very impressive foundation.
It really is. But, white papers and tech blogs are just theory until the software actually hits physical infrastructure.
Right, theory versus practice.
Exactly. Where is this technology living and breathing right now?
Yeah.
The Gate of AI review breaks down 4 distinct industry applications.
And they are all fascinating.
They are. But what really jumps out is how the underlying mechanism, this concept of zero latency reactivity, completely changes the physical spaces we move through.
It forces a transition from passive environments to intensely active ones. Look at healthcare monitoring, for example.
Which is arguably the highest stakes application here.
Absolutely. Traditionally, a bedside monitor tracks heart rate and oxygen levels. And if an alarm goes off, a nurse responds.
Or it sends a log to a centralized server for a doctor to review later.
Right. But with Edge Eloquent integrated into the medical devices themselves, the AI is analyzing the EKG waveforms in real time, literally between beats.
Wait, between individual heartbeats?
Yes. It isn't waiting for a human to notice a trend. And it isn't waiting for a cloud server to confirm an anomaly.
Wow.
It detects the microscopic precursors to a cardiac event. And it can instantly trigger localized interventions or emergency alerts milliseconds before the event fully materializes.
That's incredible. It's the difference between a system that reports a crisis and a system that intercepts it.
Beautifully put, yes.
And you see that exact same mechanism scaled up massively in the industrial sector. The review highlights predictive maintenance in manufacturing.
Another great example.
Yeah, instead of a bedside monitor tracking a heartbeat, you have acoustic sensors and vibration monitors attached to million-dollar robotic arms on a factory floor.
And the AI sits right there on the equipment.
Listening to the literal acoustic signature of the bearings, it learns the specific, localized hum of that exact machine.
Because of that adaptive learning we talked about.
Exactly. If the vibration pattern shifts by a fraction of a millimeter, indicating a microfracture, the Edge AI instantly powers down the machine to prevent a catastrophic failure.
Which eliminates unexpected downtime. The financial implications of that are staggering for a massive manufacturing operation.
I can only imagine. But the implications become even more visible when you scale that reactivity up to the level of municipal infrastructure.
Smart cities using edge computing to manage traffic grids.
Right. Processing data from thousands of urban sensors and intersection cameras. In a traditional smart city model, all that camera data streams to a central traffic hub.
Which then tries to optimize the whole city at once.
Which is just too much data, and it's too slow. But with this technology, the intersection itself is intelligent.
The camera analyzes the flow of cars locally.
Yeah, the speed of approaching buses, the density of pedestrians waiting on the corner, and it dynamically adjusts the traffic lights locally to clear bottlenecks in real time.
It's amazing.
The intelligence is distributed, effectively creating a self-regulating mesh network of intersections.
A perfect example of high-speed reactivity functioning as a universal public utility. It reduces emissions, minimizes congestion, and makes the physical cities significantly more efficient.
But here's where it gets really interesting and where the tone of the Gate of AI review shifts quite a bit.
Yeah, the retail application.
Yeah. They take this exact same technological mechanism, real-time, zero-latency sensor analysis, and apply it to the retail sector. We're talking about point-of-sale analytics.
This is the checkout aisle scenario you mentioned earlier.
Exactly. An AI system actively analyzing physical customer behavior, dwell time, and interactions in a store aisle, and using that local data to adjust digital marketing and pricing strategies on the fly while you are literally standing there.
In real time.
It's one thing for an AI to optimize a traffic light for the public good, but applying that exact same hyper-reactive capability to extract maximum value from a consumer in the span of 10 seconds. It feels entirely different, like almost invasive.
It highlights the dual nature of any foundational technology, really.
How do you mean?
Well, the mechanism doesn't care about the application. The edge device is simply taking localized inputs, running its quantized model, and optimizing for its programmed metric.
It just does what it's told.
Right. In the city, the metric is traffic flow. In the retail store, the metric is conversion rate and revenue.
Yeah.
The Gate of AI analysis makes it very clear that as this technology proliferates, the physical environments you inhabit, whether it's a hospital, a public street, or a grocery store, will no longer be static spaces.
That's a wild thought.
The infrastructure itself will constantly learn and react to your presence instantaneously.
It completely changes how you view a simple trip to the store. Now, listening to these use cases, it sounds like an absolute technological utopia for enterprise operators.
It does sound like magic.
But the reviewers at Gate of AI did not give this software a perfect score. In fact, they handed Google AI Edge Eloquent a 7 out of 10.
Ouch.
Right. For a flagship, revolutionary piece of AI infrastructure from one of the biggest companies on Earth, a 7 feels like a cold splash of water. What exactly is keeping this tool from total market dominance?
That 7 out of 10 is rooted deeply in the realities of deployment. The cons section of their analysis is a heavy read for any IT director.
Oh, really? What's the biggest issue?
The first major hurdle is the cost structure. Google has kept the official pricing largely undisclosed.
Ah, the dreaded contact sales for an enterprise, quote, landing page.
Exactly, which immediately signals that this is not a democratized tool.
It's expensive.
Very. The reviewers infer that given the sheer analytical power, the advanced encryption integration, and the continuous learning capabilities, Google is positioning this strictly as a premium, top-tier enterprise solution.
So, priced for massive logistics companies, national hospital networks, and heavy industry.
Right. But the financial cost is actually secondary to the operational cost. The review explicitly targets the excruciatingly complex initial setup.
But hold on, this feels completely contradictory to the entire premise of the software.
Why is that?
Well, we established earlier that Edge Eloquent is specifically engineered for resource-constrained environments. Tiny sensors, localized chips, simplified edge hardware.
Yes.
Shouldn't the deployment of that software be streamlined and lightweight as well? It seems completely backwards that a tool designed to simplify intelligence at the edge requires a massive dedicated IT team just to get it booted up.
This raises an important question about the distinction between the operation of a software and the deployment of an infrastructure.
Okay, break that down.
You are absolutely correct that once the software is running, it operates beautifully on constrained hardware.
Right.
But getting it there requires synthesizing incredibly complex AI models with highly specific, often fragmented, local hardware. Edge Eloquent is not a consumer plug-and-play gadget. You don't just download an app and connect it to your local Wi-Fi.
Right, so it's the difference between buying a high-performance Formula One car and a daily commuter vehicle.
That's a perfect analogy.
The Formula One car is objectively a masterpiece of engineering, right? Capable of astonishing speeds and reactivity. But you can't just turn the key. You need a dedicated pit crew of highly specialized engineers calibrating the telemetry just to get the engine to turn over.
And in the enterprise world, that pit crew is very hard to find. The deployment requires engineers who deeply understand both advanced machine learning operations and incredibly niche edge hardware configurations.
Which is a rare skill set.
Very rare. Furthermore, the review points out a third significant flaw, which is inconsistent performance across mixed infrastructures.
Meaning, not every piece of hardware plays nicely with the software.
Right. Imagine a logistics company trying to deploy this. They have brand new edge TPUs in their modern warehouses, but they also have 5-year-old legacy sensors on their delivery fleet.
Oh, man.
And the network reliability fluctuates wildly between urban centers and rural routes. The Gate of AI reviewers found that getting Edge Eloquent to perform its continuous learning and inference consistently across that kind of diverse, fragmented infrastructure is an operational nightmare.
That friction is the main reason they docked points, I imagine.
Definitely. It is a profoundly powerful digital transformation asset for organizations that have the engineering talent and the unified hardware to support it. But for companies prioritizing ease of use or those sitting on a patchwork of legacy tech, this software is going to be incredibly difficult to tame.
So to bring all of this together for you listening, let's look at the big picture we painted today. The Gate of AI review makes it abundantly clear that Google AI Edge Eloquent represents a tectonic shift in the architecture of computing.
A massive shift.
It is actively moving us away from total reliance on the centralized cloud. By utilizing model quantization and localized transfer learning, it brings real-time, zero-latency artificial intelligence directly to the physical edge of the network.
It's fast, it adapts continuously, and it locks down data security by keeping everything perfectly local.
But that raw capability comes with a steep toll. The severe complexity of the deployment, the struggle to maintain consistent performance across fragmented hardware ecosystems, and the undeniably massive enterprise price tag mean this is an infrastructure tool, not a universal magic wand.
It earned its 7 out of 10 by being brilliant in execution, but exceptionally demanding in preparation.
And understanding this shift is vital. The infrastructure of our daily lives is being rewired.
Completely.
Whether you are analyzing a tech strategy for your own company, trying to understand how a municipal traffic grid operates so seamlessly, or just noticing how the digital signs in a store seem to react to your presence, the invisible tether to the cloud is being cut. Intelligence is moving into the room with you.
It's a new era.
It really is. And as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over regarding that continuous localized learning feature.
Okay.
We discussed how Edge Eloquent updates its own parameters based purely on the specific environment it is sitting in without ever needing a centralized cloud reset.
Right. It adapts to local anomalies and local behavior.
Exactly. So if these systems are deployed for years, constantly tweaking their own operational code based entirely on their immediate surroundings, how long will it be until the AI systems in our physical spaces develop completely unique, localized operational quirks?
Oh, that's interesting, like a personality almost.
Yeah. If a traffic management AI in a fast-paced, aggressive city continuously learns from that specific driving style and never synchronizes back to a master cloud model, it will evolve completely differently than the exact same software running in a quiet, rural town.
The software inevitably begins to reflect the exact nature of the space it occupies.
Exactly.
The intelligence doesn't just act locally, it becomes inherently local.
A fascinating prospect. The tech stops being a standardized product and starts becoming a reflection of its environment.
Truly.
So the next time you find yourself wishing you had a genius consultant on the phone to solve a massive problem, just remember pretty soon you might not have to make a call at all. That genius might just be sitting directly in your pocket, already analyzing the room and updating its worldview before you've even asked the question. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.